Hello and welcome back to the Overdue Sports Show. This is episode 7 of the Overdue Sports Show. I'm your host, Jake Sawinski, accompanied by Will Massa. You ready for some college hoops, Will?
It's March, officially.
It is March, based on my little, what do you call it, description under the nameplate there. It just says March. We did spend some significant time pre-show about getting the conference tournament scheduled because we record on Wednesdays or like for Wednesday. Sometimes it's Monday, sometimes it's Tuesday, whatever. And scheduling that has kind of been like jumping through hoops and ladders. So you might get a bonus episode. We might do 2 this week, maybe even like a third one early next week, just to make sure we have all of our bases covered and we're not doing 200 conferences in one episode. And I think we were on the fence about doing all of them. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like we did them all last year, and like we love ball, so it's like some of these we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to cover this episode. 6 of them are absolute shit, but we're gonna talk about them anyways because I don't know if any of the listeners follow Rob Donaldson on Twitter. He covers college basketball real extensively at the betting side of it, and I think he is the only person outside of like, I don't know, SGPN that might cover some of this crap too, but no one's talking Big South or Big Southern or the Southern Conference hoops. Like, no one's doing that.
It's not for the faint of heart.
It's really not. Like, but you might not have a ton of takeaways from some of those conferences, but we were also debating. We don't remember if I like guaranteed Gonzaga a WCC victory last year in the conference. We don't remember if I was wrong or I was right, but we do remember I was very passionate about that. But you might get one of those, you might not. We're not really sure. But before we get into that, any college baseball from your corner of the world, Will? Anything you'd like to add? I know Hawaii has been like your team this year. You're a Rainbow Warrior now.
I am. That's my team. And for the record, Gonzaga did not win that game last year. They were conference tournament champions in 2023. So I vividly remember you guaranteeing that win, that you loved it, and St. Mary's ended up beating them in the conference championship. But college baseball is going well. I had a good weekend. Yeah, so sometimes you eat the trash. It's just how it goes. I had a good weekend. It's like the first weekend where I actually picked up like full winning days, where I'm not just like winning the juice, which is like kind of been the story of my season so far. To pick up like 4-ish units on the weekend, like that's good. And there's a lot of people out there. There's some fantastic bettors in the college baseball space that lay 70 bets. I don't do that. I usually have 2 to 3 every day of the weekend, 1 or 2 on the weekdays. So we're looking at like 7 to 8 bets over the course of a week. Still feels good when you win on those though. Like obviously, like I don't bet the volume to go up 500 units over the course of a season, so I'm never going to claim that. But I like to claim that I'm a positive bettor in the sport, and over the last couple of years, I've been really successful. So looking to keep that trend rolling into week 4. But finally, like some of those parlays, like I do a lot of chalky parlays. That's kind of the way you have to do it when you do parlays, and those are finally hitting. Like we're starting to see some of the bigger teams start to just stomp lesser teams. So things are kind of coming to fruition and hitting on some good dogs. So it was a good week.
That's good. I'll give you another pat on the back to those Twitter accounts that are like, oh, we're up 500 units in the last 3 days. Yeah, I doubt it, pal.
There are some guys. For everyone who doesn't follow him, his name is Delta Dimes on Twitter. He puts down, like, very knowledgeable dude, but he probably lays like 18 bets on a Friday for college baseball, which like the slates aren't that big in college baseball. It's like he almost bets every single game, and he's up big time. He does really good stuff. But yeah, you don't typically see people that lay like 18 bets on a Friday.
No,
it's
especially
like basketball.
Yeah, like see, like I'll do that in college basketball and football, but not like college baseball. I don't know anything about it, but like if there were enough MLB games to do that, like I wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? Like there's
No.
only going to be 16 games in a day, but I wouldn't do that if there was enough volume to. But what's a unit to those guys? Oh, I'm up 500 units. If you're regularly betting 50 units in a game, that's not 50 units. That's one unit. Like the unit is used to be comparable to everyone else. Like because some people will bet a nickel, some people will bet $5,000. That's what it's for, to be constant with everyone to track your performance. It's because it's not about money; it's about the unit. But whatever. Here we go. Okay, so tomorrow we have the Horizon League kicking off. The Horizon League tournament. I always know this one's sponsored by Barbasol, the shaving cream. I could use some. But who do you like in the Horizon League? I've got a few teams written down. I feel like this one's always pretty wide open. I'm sure you're going to attest to that as well. But who do you like? What stands out to you?
Yeah, like you said, this one's always wide open. You always see like the top 6 teams as very bettable every single year. Typically, we see teams like Youngstown and Cleveland State at the top. They're actually the 3 and 4 this year, and there's a pretty significant drop off in odds when you do hit Youngstown. And granted, that's not the same team that they were last year.
Not at all.
They were very, very senior heavy last year, so very different team that we're looking at. Still the 4 seed at plus 750. I mean, in these tournaments, when you look at the buys, it's hard not to take teams with the best path. I think that's always how you got to look at it. This one luckily does not have any crazy buys like we'll talk about in a couple of these. I mean, Cleveland State is always a team for me that I like love backing, especially this time of year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they were an NIT wagon last year. I can't remember if it was the NIT or the CBI.
I
But,
think it was the CBI. I don't know if it was last year or the year
I think it was
before,
last
but
year.
they won it, I thought. Or
Yeah.
if they didn't win it, they were in like the championship game of one of those invites. It wasn't the NIT though, but yes, they had a pretty good postseason.
They tend to play pretty good ball this time of year. And Robert Morris has broken on the scene this year. They're typically not in those top couple of teams. I'm sure a lot of the teams that are going to gain attention because they always seem to do well in this tournament are Oakland and NKU. And NKU, they always tend to do well in this tournament. Oakland sitting at 14-1 and NKU at 30-1. Not the same teams that we've seen before, but we saw, I can't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago, but NKU made a run as like the 9 seed or the 8 seed in this tournament.
Yep,
so
that was 2 years ago. Yeah, they lost to Houston in the first round.
Yeah, very, very possible for these lesser teams. I mean, a team that just sticks out to me is Cleveland State plus 310. You're catching them right in the middle. I think it's a solid draw for them. I'm looking at the tournament bracket. They will draw Wright State or IUPUI, and so they should pick up a win there, and then they'll probably face off with UW Milwaukee. It was very solid this year.
Yeah, they're the betting favorite, I believe, Milwaukee. If not close. First or second odds.
Robert Morris is plus 240. Milwaukee is plus 280. So right there, Cleveland State plus 310. So those top 3 are kind of all bunched together. I like Cleveland State here. I think Oakland is worth a look. I know it's a little bit of recency bias, but 14-1 is a pretty steep price for a team that historically plays well in this tournament too.
Yeah, I think those outside ones are kind of telling, and I think people are going to be gravitated towards last year's winner. Like, oh, they're 14-1. That might be a good bet. I don't think Oakland's there. I think that one's priced correctly, and they've kind of struggled all season. Like they just never really strung any games together. It seemed like they had a stretch here or there, but yeah, definitely a different team. Fort Wayne is the one that's kind of looking at me funny. Like, I wouldn't bet that without one of those 3 you mentioned in there, just because, what's Fort Wayne? Got to be like 12-1, 10-1, something like that.
Plus 650.
650. Okay, so I feel like that might be a viable option as well if you like kind of longer plays like I do. But I wouldn't do that one solo. That's one that I would probably add like Robert Morris to. Like, they're really good. They cover spreads too, so it's like Does that always matter? No, but like if you can get to the championship game with one of those longer shots still intact, you're probably gonna make money either way. So those are the two I like there.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. And for what it's worth, Purdue Fort Wayne will play Youngstown State, and so that could be. And
Yeah,
like I
that's a
said, like
toss-up. Yeah.
like Youngstown is not the same team, so like you're getting a good draw for their first game. I think that's worth something, especially when you're looking at plus 650.
And that's why it's priced so long too, just because it's like that one's kind of a real toss-up. It's not like they're playing a Green Bay or IUPUI in their first game. So, anything else on the Horizon League? This one does start tomorrow, so we'll be putting this episode out as soon as we're done. That way,
that's all I got for Horizon.
Two pieces of wisdom there. All right. Oh, the real fun one, the Patriot League. I believe this one also starts tomorrow.
Yep.
And I don't know if you've got anything intelligent to add, but I have like two teams that I see, and like that's really it.
This is one of those conferences where it's always like it's as chalk as it can be for the most part. So sticking with that theme, I mean, you got Bucknell at plus 110. Not necessarily something I would actually bet, but I mean, they just seem to be the best team in that entire conference. And as much as I like Colgate, it's an entirely different Colgate team than we've seen in the past. Like normally, I would be all over Colgate at plus 400, but I don't think this is the year for that.
I don't think so either. And sometimes with these smaller conferences, they're extremely unpredictable. But like Colgate's flat out bad. All of these teams are flat out bad, aside from Bucknell. But their record's really deceiving. But it seemed like they kind of ran through the Patriot League in the second half of conference play. So Bucknell's definitely one I would look at. And then I kind of like the 2-seed American as well. They've got to be like 2 or 3 to 1. Like they can't be much longer than that.
Plus 270.
Yeah. That would be a viable option for me too. This conference just is bad. It's usually bad, but it seems like this year especially it's really, really bad. So, I mean, for me, those are the only two I would look at. I don't think there is a viable long shot in this conference. Like, is Army going to go on a run? I doubt it. Loyola Maryland or Lehigh? I don't know. Like, Lehigh might steal money in a game or two, but outside of that, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm with you. And Colgate again just isn't that same team. Like usually they stomp this conference.
Yeah,
they just go pull the pole a bit more often than not.
Yeah.
And it's usually a team that I look to back like in the actual big tournament. And I'm not saying that they won't win this, but it's not a team that I would even back in the full tournament. Like last year I was in on Colgate, to catch a team sleeping. They were super senior heavy, shot the ball incredibly well, played really strong defense.
Lost by 200. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they played Texas. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe I probably bet them to cover because I fall in love with these mid-major teams and they get to the tournament and I just feel just vindicated to bet them. It never goes my way. Jake will always give me shit for VCU 2 years ago. That was my team. They were so good to me all regular season.
They're not winning.
You're like, they stink. And they played St. Mary's in the first round and just got waxed.
It's like, I've watched them too. They're not good. But we don't need to spend any more time on the Patriot League. Now, this conference is a lot more fun, and I think there are a lot more viable betting options, and this is the Sun Belt tournament.
However, the tournament format throws a huge wrench in that. South Alabama and James Madison as the 1 and 2 seeds get a bye to the semifinals. They've structured it now like the WCC does. So they really want to put their best foot forward in the big dance. But I still think there's some frisky teams that are down the line. And the one thing that I'm struggling with is like, it's the rest over rust argument every single 100%. Time. It's like, is a team that I was looking at and that we talked about is App State at 13 to 1 as the 6th seed, but they have to play 3 games to just get to the final and get through the 2 seed in James Madison, which they played well against James Madison in the regular season. I believe they swept them. They may have split, but I'm pretty sure they swept them. And for them, that's a favorable draw. But the other team that I like is in the same side of the bracket, and it's Troy at the 3 seed. It could be honestly as simple as like whoever wins that game, like if App State wins game 1, whoever wins App State Troy might be the winner of this whole thing. I think 3 games is kind of where I draw the line on tournaments like this, where you have this just huge buy. I mean, South Alabama and James Madison don't play for 5 more days when this tournament starts. So like they're just gonna watch and watch and watch until they finally play on next Sunday. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays into it. I don't have any sort of statistics to back up whether or not like that format screws teams. I mean, look at the WCC. It's Gonzaga and St. Mary's every single year as the 1 and 2, and they always play in the finals every single time. So maybe there's some validity to that, but maybe those teams are just flat out better. Those are the teams that I would look
both.
At.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both are true.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
But those are the 2 teams that I would look at in that bottom half of the bracket.
Yeah, and I think we're pretty much aligned here too. Like it's really hard to be like, oh, I think 12 seed Coastal can go on a run. It's like, well, they're horrible to begin with, and 2, it's just that all those extra games really make it hard for an underseeded team to really go on a run. Like you have to be playing perfect basketball, and even if it was like a team like Troy or App State who was a little underseeded, that's not the case. You know, it's like those 4 teams down there that have to play their way all the way through. Like I don't see a tremendous long shot in this tournament either. I like Troy. You like App State. I think those are 2 really good options. And I think Central Arkansas might be a little trappy. If that makes sense. It's like the conference as a whole, they have the highest profile win. They beat Memphis outright in like November, I think, or November or December. They thumped Memphis. So I would gravitate away from them just because it seems like there's not a big price difference between James Madison and them. I think they're both under 3-1. So like me looking at that, to me, it would be James Madison. And if I were to pick between one of those 2, but I think I like Troy. Like they're not flashy or anything. They just kind of play that yucky brand of basketball, but that works this time of year for sure. So like for me, it'd probably be JMU or Troy.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, JMU as the 2 seed is 4th in betting odds at plus 380. So you got South Alabama at plus 280, Arkansas State at plus 200 as the 4 seed, then Troy, James Madison, 3-2.
Right. Yeah, South Alabama is good too. So they're kind of a under the radar Sun Belt team, I feel like, but they're pretty solid as well. You got anything else for the old Fun Belt?
That's all I got. No, because I mean we can talk about this when we talk about the WCC too, but I hate this tournament format. I think it just takes away like what everybody loves about March, and I get it. Like as a small conference, you want your best team in the dance because it highlights the cream of the crop, right? You're not getting a random Coastal Carolina who has no business being there, but rattled off 3 games in a tournament and won the damn thing. It's like you want those best teams in, but as a watcher, like as a viewer, I mean, that's what we live for in March. That's like the whole point of that's the madness of March Madness is that piece of it. And I get it for these small conferences. I believe there's revenue involved if they win games in the tournament for the conference. So like as a small conference that's probably struggling in the NIL department, it makes sense that you would switch to that format because that's the only way that you can start to compete with some of these bigger conferences. It gives you the best shot is basically what they're looking at. Who's going to give us the best chance? Let's favor them for it.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way it is, and I don't see that changing. Yeah, it's not fun just because it's like, oh, a little extra chaos, and like sometimes you still get it too. You know, you never know. Like,
oh yeah,
this conference especially would be tough just because it's a large conference. Like, there's 13 teams in it. The WCC, it's like if they were a little more talented across the board, I feel like you could go away from that format or keep that format and have a shakeup every couple of years. But just the way St. Mary's and Gonzaga dominate this conference, like it's just never going to change. Like the format for them is probably irrelevant just because those 2 teams will find a way out every year.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, Marshall at 20-1 actually put together a really
Mhm.
good regular season resume in conference. They waxed App State at the very end of the season just a couple of nights ago, and they swept them on this season. They lost to South Alabama, the 1 seed, in overtime, and they split with James Madison. And then Troy barely edged them out in the regular season as well. So like you're looking at a team that like competed all year with these top teams. But again, at 20-1, like, yeah, that's a really good price for that team. But they're gonna have to rattle off 4 games to win this
Yeah,
thing.
that's what I
It's
was
like
gonna
how
say. It's like
it's
that
just like
extra
how
game.
I just don't think I can get behind that. Like as much as I think like that could be a viable option, especially at that price point. And maybe that's one you take and then hedge out of when they face up with, if they get to the semifinals or they
Yeah.
get to the quarterfinals, start to hedge your way out of it. But yeah, for what it's worth, I think Marshall could be a good look if you're really into the long shots.
I think so too, but like you said, I feel like they're kind of aggressively priced for
Yeah,
how
there's a reason.
well they've
Well, there's a
actually
reason for it.
played. Yeah, like I think that one extra game plays a part in it, but I also think it's like, hey, they're pretty aggressively priced for. Hey, they swept App State, a good team in the conference. They played close with Troy and South Alabama, so it's like I feel like that discourages me just enough. Now, if it was like 15-1 or 10-1, somewhere in that range, I feel like that would be a more viable option for me. But anything else on the old Fun Belt?
That's all I got.
That's all you got. All right. Let's go to the Big South. You're probably thinking, what the hell is the Big South? Who plays in the Big South? I don't even think I wrote down anything in the Big South because it's only like one team I would play here, and it's High Point. I think Winthrop and Radford are both in the 7-1 range, and I think Winthrop is a team people will remember just because they've seemed to get out of this conference tournament a lot the last couple of seasons. Like they seem to be the one representative from this conference. I think Longwood made it a few years ago, but they are bad. I think they're like 80-1, 70-1, somewhere in that range. But
Yeah, 14-1. The one team, and to your point, like teams that people remember, it's UNC Asheville.
yep,
Like over the
lost
last
to
couple of years, that team
UCLA.
has been,
Yep.
yeah, that team has been like really, really solid. Again, one of those teams that is typically very senior heavy. Not the same team. They're plus 950. I wouldn't look that far down the board. This is one of those tournaments that's like, don't bet it, but don't overthink it. Like it's High Point.
I think so too.
I
Yeah,
think they're actually like a very solid mid major.
they are. They're like 21-5 or 20-6, something like that. But yeah, like to your point, if you see one of these mid-major conference tournaments and they have a minus sign, it's probably them. Like you don't see it in the Power 5 tournaments, but like even if you did, I feel like the big boys never seem to win the conference tournament. Like Duke will win the regular season title more than likely, unless they were to lose to Wake Forest tonight. And I think they're winning right now. But they never seem to win the conference tournament. Like look at NC State, they went all the way to the Final Four, and I think they were an 11 seed in the actual tournament, and I think they were pretty low seeded in the ACC tournament as well.
Yeah, I mean they were a team that wasn't going to get in had they not done that. I think it was one of those teams where even if they, I mean, really the only way they were going to get in is getting the auto bid, and they went to the Final Four.
Yeah, so like freak things happen, but I'm not saying like, hey, you should only look for a long shot. But in the Power 5 tournaments, the regular season champion or the 1 or 2 seed might get there, but it seems like they don't always win in the easiest fashion. You would think the competition's more level, but with these smaller conferences, if it's minus money, I think more than likely that's kind of a way to look.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I don't have anything else here. Like I would probably play Radford. They shoot a lot of threes. We were talking about that before show. Sometimes they go in. Like I mean, I feel like that's you have a shooter's chance.
I think I gave them out last year too. I think that was the team I bet in the conference tournament. It was the same kind of deal. It's like you just hope that they just bang threes for a couple games and they go in and they can put it together for a few straight games. But yeah, I don't think this is one that has a lot of potential for down the list teams to make a run.
No, I don't think so either. Next up, we have the NEC. this one is going to be real quick, we promise, because every team in this conference is bad, but somebody has to win this conference. Like, we're not sure why this conference hasn't been relegated to D2 yet.
Should
because
be.
they should be. They're terrible. Like, I know you and I have both been very vocal about like how we find it a little unfair that like the 16 seeds have to play that extra game once in a while. You know,
Yes,
kind of
hate that.
dependent. We think it's unfair, but I think it's totally fair when there's an NEC team involved, and there's always an NEC team involved because nobody wants the NEC there. They're terrible. Like, I think Howard ended up winning that play-in last year. I think Howard played Texas Southern. Could be
Yeah,
wrong,
something
but
like that.
yeah, but it always seems to be like Howard. But they're in a different conference, but they're in the MEAC. But the point applies. It's like this. It's Wagner. That's who it was. Wagner played Howard, I think. Yeah, there you go. That's what I was thinking of, not Howard. Wagner. But they're terrible. Every team in this conference is bad, but somebody has to win it. And Central Connecticut being minus 200 is like criminally insane. Like, but like, I don't know who else you'd go to.
You know what I'm gonna say?
Yeah, Long Island
Give me the
Sharks. You
Sharks.
love the Sharks. They're terrible.
They cover. They cover occasionally.
Yeah, finally they covered. They didn't cover a game for like 400 years. Oh, I
mean,
remember.
plus 325. Like, come on. Like, if you're gonna do it, that's what you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, if you're gonna bet the Patriot League, you might as well do something. Or
if you're
NEC,
betting the
sorry.
conference tournament, like there's no hope.
Yeah, there's something wrong with you. Call the damn number. But yeah, outside of Central Connecticut, I kind of like St. Francis at 12-1. Like, if I'm gonna light my money on fire, I'll do it on a long shot. So, I feel like St. Francis has been playing some good ball. I bet on them a couple of times this last week, and like nothing went right this week for me except for them. So like I might just throw
the hot hand.
Yeah, throw half a unit on St. Francis, Pennsylvania, and watch it disappear. Yeah. All right, let's not waste any more time on this dog shit conference. Next up is the Ohio Valley Conference. This is a conference tournament that I feel like usually is a little bit more fun than it appears to be this year. I feel like this conference struggled a little bit this year as a whole, kind of even across.
Yeah, I'm with
board.
you. I mean, Moorhead was a really good program last year, and for frame of reference, they're 70-1 and like 8th down the list.
Yeah, they're really bad. Like it seems to have flipped this year. Where are my Ohio Valley notes? I didn't write down Ohio Valley for whatever reason. But I think SIUE, yeah, Edwardsville kind of emerged as like a really good team in this conference. And it always seemed to be Moorhead State and Murray State in this conference. Or are they in the other valley?
They're in the
Missouri Valley. Okay, I better just look this up. But I do know that I did like Edwardsville.
Yeah,
that would have been
SIUE is plus 230 as the 2 seed. I'm gonna go down the list a little bit here, and it's just because this team, it seems like this time of year, and I remember this being the case last year as well in this tournament. Like Little Rock just seems to be a thorn in everyone's side in this conference. Like they just get in these weird like trappy spots. And they're plus 450 as the third betting favorite. I don't know if they're the 3 seed or the 4 seed. But Little Rock is a team I would look at. Like they just seem like this conference. I think you can look at the top 4 teams and it's kind of a coin flip. It's like, who do you think is playing the best ball right now, or who's going to play the best ball? Little Rock is a team that I would look at plus 450.
Yeah, I would. I would agree with that too. And I mean, I don't think every team makes this tournament. Right?
No, I think you're right because they have 10. 8?
8 or 10. I think
8. Yeah, 8.
Yeah, but you have Tennessee State at plus 450 ish. I'm looking at a different thing than Will is, and then Tennessee Martin UT is at 30-1. So I mean that's pretty telling right there. So I think if you've got a hunch on any team in the top 4, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, you've got a 25% chance is the way I look at it. Like, I like SIUE. That's probably who I'd go with. If you'd go with any other of the teams, inside the 5-1 range, the top four, I don't see any issue. It's pretty much a toss up between those four, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Moving on to the Summit. This one is another conference where not really sure. Typically, it seems to be South Dakota State's conference, once the tournament starts. But I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I think this one is a lot more open than usual. Same kind of deal where it's top heavy, but I feel like South Dakota State will be the very obvious public favorite just because it's a familiar name that everyone sees and it seems like they make it every year. Except, Oral Roberts those couple of years who will not win. They're dead last at 250-1. They are horrible. But St. Thomas, looking at us funny.
Those are my guys. That's been my team, and I've been very vocal over the last 2 years we've been doing this, that I think it's just criminal that they're not allowed in the tournament from jumping up to D2 or from D2. Actually, they jumped up from D3. Let me correct that. Jumped up from D3 to D1. Those teams should never be punished as far as postseason is concerned. Like, not only are you battling jumping 2 full levels of competition, but you're battling with like the recruiting piece of it. Like, it's easier to recruit when you're that dominant of a D3 school. But now even looking at conference, like, you have South Dakota State, who is typically in the big dance. Like, so even that, and you take it one step further, they're in Minnesota. You're going to lose kids to Minnesota. So like, I just think it's ridiculous that a team like that gets punished. And I, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they won the tournament last year and were not eligible to be in the big dance. So whoever got runner up, just a revenge tour, plus 240. Give me the Tommies.
Yeah, I think I like that angle too. South Dakota State, I mean, we're not saying that they don't have a chance because they definitely do. And I feel like they're the same team as they usually are. It's just like you drop one here or there. I think they got smoked by Denver the other day. But North Dakota State's kind of looking at me funny too. Typically, they're kind of a laggard in this conference, and it seems like they've been a lot more competitive this year. It's reflected in, third odds on favorite. Omaha is another team where it's like, never know. Like, they're kind of frisky too. But outside of those four, I'm not really seeing anything else. South Dakota's fun to watch. They don't play any defense. Like, they regularly give up 100 points. So it'll be a fun watch, that 1 or 2 games they play. But Kansas City, the Roos are really anemic, or they'll score 200. This is a pretty wild conference. Yeah.
They're going to win one game in this tournament. Book it. I don't know who they're going to draw in the first round. They're going to win one of these games. They're going to win a stupid game that they have no business. They're going to be like 8-point dogs. They're going to win outright. And then they're going to get absolutely steamrolled whoever they play after.
Yeah, the Summit's weird. This is another one where you probably shouldn't be deploying any units on a Summit game, but no, it's all right.
I might on the Tommies.
Yeah, I might do that too, but
yeah,
a little squad ride on the Tommies. Okay, I think that's all of the Wednesday conferences. Then we've got the WCC on Thursday. No, I will not be doing a nuclear piss missile guarantee that Gonzaga wins the tournament. But I do think Gonzaga is going to win the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, they were in this exact spot last year, and I believe they were either even money or minus money to win the conference. It was like literally carbon copy as the same thing as last year. I think Gonzaga was the 2 seed, but the betting favorite. This year, St. Mary's just had their number in the regular season. They were 17-1 in WCC play.
Well, I was gonna say I don't think they had their number. Like most years in the past, I was so high on Gonzaga last year because it's like Gonzaga slips up and loses a tough game. Like they have a tough loss, right? This year, for the first time in a very long time, they're not the best team in the conference. St. Mary's is flat out better than them. Like if you don't believe that, you're not watching basketball. Like St. Mary's is just better. They like in every facet, they're better. So that kind of makes me like the Gonzaga angle a little more because they're favored. But I'm not really sure how much of that is just people betting on Gonzaga because it's like a Gonzaga bias with the WCC. I'm not really sure. But I think you mentioned that you kind of like Santa Clara. I wouldn't go that far. To me, it's one of these two, like it is every year. I don't fall for it in this tournament. It's always one of those two.
Yeah, I'm with you. And to your point, like usually Gonzaga rolls in conference play, other than maybe getting tripped up by St. Mary's. A lot of the times they split with St. Mary's. St. Mary's happened to sweep them this year. This year they had 4 losses in conference play. So it's like a little bit different from what we're used to seeing and what they do. And Santa Clara being one of those teams, they earned a road win at Gonzaga just about, not a month ago now, but in mid-January, they earned a road win at Gonzaga. So, like, I mean, Santa Clara could catch a team sleeping. They're going to get a pretty easy game in the quarterfinals because this is, again, one of those tournaments where everybody just gets bye on bye on bye. So they're going to draw Oregon State, Pepperdine, or Portland, and they're going to steamroll whoever they play in that game. So realistically, you're looking at Santa Clara versus St. Mary's, and I think they have a shot. But again, like I don't like backing those teams in this tournament as much as I love the Dons. I mean, the Dons are 22-1 as the
they're not good this year either. Like typically they've been
not.
a lot better than they have been. They
Yeah,
are.
and,
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and Gonzaga is the betting favorite for a reason. I think this is the year. I mean, they get swept by St. Mary's. It's really, really hard to beat a team 3 times in a row in a season, and it just feels like Gonzaga, like, and like you said, St. Mary's from a basketball perspective, I believe is the better team.
Yeah,
I think they're legitimately primed for a run in the big tournament, and it actually might benefit them to lose this game depending on how the seeding works. Like
that's an angle to look at too.
Yeah, like you catch a weird loss in the conference tournament, you know they're both going to get in. Like, I'd be hard pressed to believe that one of them, regardless of
they're both auto bids.
Yeah, so like St. Mary's would be a team I look to back if they lose in the actual tournament. But this just feels like Gonzaga. I mean, it's the same spot as last year. I mean, how often does history repeat itself when it's like that?
Yeah, that's true, but I don't know. Like the thing with St. Mary's though, it's like they ran through conference play, but like they're just getting ranked. Like they don't play anybody. Like at least at Gonzaga's benefit, they play those tough non-conference games because they have to. St. Mary's didn't really do that this year, unless I'm misremembering, but I don't really think they've played anybody compelling outside of their conference. Perhaps I'm wrong, but at least Gonzaga makes the effort, hey, let's go play Illinois, let's go play Alabama, let's go do those things because we need to kind of prop up our resume a little bit. Like St. Mary's has been in the 5 seed conversation. I can't imagine they'd be any higher than that. I think Gonzaga is going to have a pretty favorable draw in the tournament too, just because they really haven't been as dominant as they typically are. Like I feel like Gonzaga could be a 4 seed, and I think St. Mary's would probably like round out at a 4 or 5. Like I don't see it being too much better for them.
Yeah, and to your point, like St. Mary's had some bad losses this year. Like they rolled the conference this year. They only have 1 loss in conference play. But I mean, they just rolled the non-conference schedule, and they didn't really play anybody. And I mean, they smacked Kent State, who isn't very good. Or no, that was last year. Where did I just see this? I just saw their non-conference schedule. I lost it. Yeah, I mean, Towson, Chattanooga, Akron, like all teams that aren't the same. I mean, they beat Nebraska, but Nebraska's
that's not saying much.
No, they lost
Nebraska
Arizona
beat
State.
Creighton, isn't that wild? Arizona State's bad.
In Tempe, they lost to Boise State at Boise.
They lost
to Utah State. Yeah, they lost to Utah State at home.
Okay, they had a couple.
They played some good, but to your point, like it's not like they went out and played the Alabamas of the world. Like they didn't play the SEC schools, they didn't play the ACC schools like Gonzaga typically does early on.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's not taking anything away from like how good they are, because they are a good team.
No,
like
they're really
fundamentally sound. They're coached well. They play well. Good team basketball. It's just I feel like the ceiling's very limited for beyond this tournament, because they're definitely going to be in the big tournament. I just feel like you're not priming yourself up to put yourself in the best position possible. Like I feel like their ceiling is a 5 seed. I feel like this year Gonzaga's ceiling is a 5 seed. Like Gonzaga just haven't been as good.
Yeah,
I guess we'll see. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves there. But
yeah, I mean, no point of. I mean, genuinely, like, I don't think there's any point to making a bet in this conference. It's more of like, who are you going to take against the spread when it comes down to St. Mary's and Gonzaga?
Yeah,
it's probably going to be like a 2. It's probably going to be like a 2-point spread again.
Yeah. Okay, this one might be a little fun. I always call it the Colonial, but it's not the Colonial anymore. It is the Coastal Conference.
I always forget that it's not the Colonial anymore. I also call this the Colonial.
It's cool. Like, Colonials is cool. It reminds you of like 18th century. And who's in that conference? William and Mary, the School of Presidents. 4 United States presidents are alums of William and Mary, the tribe. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I did not know that.
I'm surprised. It's kind of a well-known fact, I think. It's like the most presidents have graduated from William and Mary, and they were all like from 1700s. I think the last one to do it was like James Polk or something. But that doesn't matter. So I lost my train of thought. Okay. Yeah, I feel like this one is a lot of fluff at the bottom. Like, pretty crazy that Monmouth is like 25-1, and they were like 3rd or 4th in the conference. I think that's really telling.
50-1.
50-1. Okay, even double what I said. Okay, but at the top, it is very interesting to me. Wilmington is always a perennial contender in this conference, and rightfully so. They're very good. I think Charleston is a trap. I don't think Charleston is that good. Everyone has remembered Pat Kelsey at Charleston and how good they have been the last 3-4 seasons. He's gone. He's at Louisville. I think the name recognition is actually a trap in this conference, more so than the other ones. Like, Charleston's not that good. They're not bad, but compared to what we remember, they're not that good. Who do you really like here?
It's really hard for me to not say Wilmington.
Yeah,
that's just a team
just
I
always
love backing.
they always
I
just do it. They always just come.
Yeah,
they always do it.
And Charleston is not the same team. Like, Charleston is not what they were last year. Like, it's a very different team. Even 2 years ago, it's a very different Charleston program. So, I think you're right in that sense. Like, that's not a team. I mean, Towson is the 1 seed at plus 450. Like, they were solid this year. I think they split with Wilmington.
They're just anemic. Like,
yeah, they're not the easiest team to back. I mean, I've gotten burned betting them a handful of times. Like, some days they just don't get off the bus.
Yeah, they'll score 40 points and lose by 3. Yeah, it's very, very strange.
Especially because when they play Drexel, it seems to happen for whatever reason. I don't know why. I tend to bet that game a lot in the regular season. They're going to draw probably Drexel as long as they beat Elon. So that could be an interesting game where Towson might just get caught with their pants down. It's really hard for me to not like Wilmington. I mean, Wilmington's going to have to face off with Charleston if favorites roll in the semis. But man, it's hard for me to not back them and even at 2-1, it's still something I think might be worth a look.
Mm-hmm. And unlike some of these other conferences that we've covered, the previous 8 or 9 or whatever the number is, I feel like there are viable long shots in this one. One of them is Campbell. I feel like Campbell has been playing really good basketball the last couple of weeks, and I think they're 12-1. If you like long shots, longer price teams, I think they are a pretty good option right there. I feel like it's modestly priced. If they were a lot longer than that, I feel like that would be a no-go. But if you kind of look at their regular season, they played some good ball. Elon's shorter than them, but they're kind of another team. I'm just not really sure about them. Like, they've definitely been a lot better this season.
They're hurt.
But
two of their top scorers are out.
They're hurt. Same with William and Mary, their best players out. But, like, I don't know how familiar they are with winning. You know what I mean? Like, they've been bad for quite a long time. And this year it seemed like, hey, this team's a lot better. They beat Notre Dame. That's not saying much, but shit. Well, I bet them to cover like 15. They won by 10. I was so sad. It's like plus 1,000. Oh, I did. I got my revenge though. I bet NCAA and T against Elon. I got him at like plus 700. It was really cool. Anyways, but I think Campbell is a viable option. I like Wilmington as well. I will not back Towson. I say Towson. I know it's Towson, but I say Towson. I will not back that team.
I hate that. No, me either. And I feel the same about Charleston. Like, it's just not a team I'm willing to back this year.
And they might win. I'm not saying like they're bad enough to not win. Like they have a chance, but I think everyone's just going to gravitate towards Charleston because there's some familiarity there, and it's just they're not the same team. They're really not. Maybe them being second odds-on favorite is a good thing for them. I don't know. Maybe people realize this isn't the same team. But if you're kind of a casual observer of college basketball, they're not the same team. Like this isn't they're gonna upset San Diego State in the first round as a 12 seed. Well, they didn't, but they won't. I don't see it.
Yeah, I'm with. I don't see it.
Well, looking at the schedule, that was the last conference we had to cover this evening. So, do you have any other thoughts before we wrap this up? Because that was a lot of different teams.
No, I mean, I'm excited to break down Power 4. Admittedly, I haven't been as tuned in at mid-major basketball as I typically am. So these ones are a little bit tougher for me to cap. But
you didn't miss much.
The E4 ones, no. It seems, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. It just feels like mid-major basketball wasn't the same this year. Like every year, I feel like there's always 5 teams that I'm watching through the year. I'm like, this team could win a handful of games in the tournament. Like if they get the right draw. It doesn't seem to be the case this year. It doesn't seem like there's as many. Like there might be a few, but every year I always feel like there's 4 or 5 or 6 even that might make some legitimate noise. I just don't think it's the same.
Well, I've got a few things to say to that. One, I think you're kind of right, but I think it's because A, you might not be as plugged in as you usually are. B,
True.
We've talked about this before. NIL is definitely having an impact on those lower tier mid-major conferences. Like they're making Power 4, or basketball you can kind of say Power 5 with the Big East in there. But they're making those conferences a little more competitive as a whole, even though this past year doesn't really seem to be the case in the Big Ten or the Big East, because the Big East is worse than it's ever been. And third, all your wagons are playing when you go sleepy. You are not. You are a West Coast guy, a Mountain Time Zone, but
That's
close
true.
enough. And now you live in the Midwest and you go to sleep early. I can't wait to talk about the Big West because there are 2 wagons in the Big West.
I will say that.
San Diego State isn't even the best team in San Diego. What happened? Those Tritons, man, they turned it around ever since I went to that campus. Insane. I went to a high school with 200 kids, and my gymnasium was bigger than a Division I college gymnasium. Tritons are good, though. UC San Diego, wagon. So I think it's a combination of all those things. But to your point, you're kind of right. I feel like NIL has really changed the landscape for those smaller schools. It makes the better conferences a lot more competitive just because they have the resources to, recruit these guys to come play. And then who the hell's going to Wofford? I can go to Wofford or I can go to Vanderbilt. What are you going to choose? Yeah, I mean, you're going to choose Vanderbilt even if you don't play. If you're in a position to be going to school at Wofford, you're not thinking about the NBA anyways. You're just be all right, I'll just go to Vanderbilt, go Nashville, whatever. Any other closing thoughts before we wrap this bad boy up?
That's all I got. It's March. Time is here.
Yeah, it's about time. I can't wait for March to be over so I can stop betting on college basketball. It's been kicking my ass. But when it comes to the tournament, I'm really good at putting that aside because I really enjoy college basketball. I have a lot of fun. Whether I'm betting it well or not, it's still very fun for me. So,
Oh, absolutely.
that's just an excuse to keep being a degenerate asshole. But I enjoy it very much.
Absolutely. That first Friday, dude. That first Friday should just be a holiday at this point.
Yeah.
Just get me off. Let me watch from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Give me the hoops.
Literally, it's the best.
That's all I got. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. We've got some articles in the pipeline for this week. So coming out probably tomorrow and Thursday, maybe Friday, and one early next week. So we got some stuff cranking out. So stay tuned for everything, and we'll see you next week.